I have been working on a secret little project. But it won't be a secret by the time this video comes out. So I am working on my first ever cosplay, and I am stressed because I have never done a cosplay ever before in my life. But I'm really excited to go on this journey, and I'm going to be doing this video from concept to final product, and I'm so excited to share my vision of what I'm doing for my first ever real cosplay. So I'm going to be taking you on a little journey with me, and the first stop is getting our material for the cosplay. So come along with me.
No Reaper was injured in the recording of this video. I got distracted by the Christmas decorations, but we finally made it to the craft store, made it to the paint aisle, and there was such a wide variety of paints. These were wax paints that I was really excited to try. Here I was looking for the EVA foam and got really discouraged because I thought it was empty, but then I looked down and there were rolls of it. Perfect. Then I spent some time looking for little odds and ends to complete the look. And then we got the rest of the stuff off of Amazon, what we needed to complete our project.
Okay, so we finally got all of the pieces that we need for this first time cosplay. All of the pieces that we got from the crafting store, from Walmart, from Amazon, got it all. This is kind of the base of what we're going to be working with. And then over here is what the concept is for the cosplay. So I got to transform this bodysuit into what I have envisioned for my concept design. So we've got our EVA foam, got a dream and a plan. It's time to execute. All right, so the next part I'm going to do off camera. I'm going to wrap myself in plastic wrap and kind of put masking tape on for the design for the stiff portion of the armor, because this fabric, it's not stiff enough. I know when I put the scales on, it'll get a little bit stiffer, but I kind of want it to be more like rigid, and so that's where I'm going to use just a simple design for the breastplate portion, and then kind of glue it to the bodysuit in the place that I want, and then we're going to delicately place the scales on top to kind of hide the seams. I have the idea in my head. It's gonna work out. I promise it's gonna work out. All right, well, let's get to it.
Okay, so now that I have my rough pattern kind of sketched out, and when I say rough, it is rough, I'm gonna finish just kind of sketching out the design, because it was kind of hard to do this on my back. So this is the back portion, this is the front portion of the little breastplate. And I'm not doing this so that it's fully exposed. It's all gonna get covered with the scales, the EVA foam scales. However, I just wanted the bodysuit to have a little bit more rigidity, so that it looked more like armor instead of just like, I layered some scales on some fabric. So that's what we're doing. So what I'm doing here is just making sure I'm tracing out the design of the pattern and making sure it's fully fleshed out so that we have a good pattern and base to start from. Here I made sure to add in the registration marks so that when I cut out the pattern, I knew where the pieces were supposed to line up with one another. It's really important to be meticulous in this step because you're going to be making a pattern and cutting it out and tracing over this, so you want to make sure you're a little bit precise in this step. So now we're making sure to cut out the pattern so that we can now trace it onto stiffer paper. I just use printer paper. You can use cardstock if you want something a little bit more stiff, but this is important to take your time because you want the measurements to be kind of precise. So take your time with tracing it out, making sure your lines are straight, because this is what you're going to use to trace out onto the EVA foam. And here is the high density EVA foam that I used. I used the 5mm thick. It was only $7.99 and I got a lot of use out of this foam, let me tell you. So we are tracing out all of the patterns that we transferred over to our paper, making sure that we're using this white pencil to kind of see, you know, our tracings. I would recommend a gold marker or something a little bit brighter. It was a little bit hard to use the pencil, but whatever you can use to see, it doesn't matter because like you won't see this in the end product. So now that we have all of our pieces cut out, I am going to take my Dremel and kind of smooth the edges so that it's easy to connect the pieces with our cement glue that we'll need. You'll also need a heat gun so that you can shape the body of what you're working with, especially the breast portion. So that's what I'm doing right here, just using the heat foam, and I had this styrofoam round ball to kind of help me shape the breastplate. And then here I am just using the cement glue to kind of put the pieces together and using our quick seal to kind of fill in the edges so that when we paint it, none of the paint is seeping into those cracks. So, new day, let all my stuff dry that I put together last night. And now I'm working on adhering it to the bodysuit. So I know the shape is a little bit off, but don't worry, we're gonna cover it with the EVA Foam scales. This is just to give it a little bit of a structure, and so that's not on this just like stretchy fabric. You'll see once it all comes together. We'll actually see together because I have no idea if this is going to work. So I decided instead of adhering the two pieces together, I'm going to adhere it to the bodysuit because I'm going to put some embellishments here in the middle, and we'll see how it comes out. So the glue that I'm going to be using is, I guess, Aleene's premium quality fabric fusion. We're going to see if it works. I wanted a glue that, you know, could stick to the fabric of the bodysuit, so that's what we're going to try now. So I'm just carefully putting the glue all around the EVA foam so that I can stick it to the bodysuit, and fingers crossed and hope that it works. This part did take some time because you have to hold it and make sure that it stays onto the fabric for a little bit. But overall, I think it worked out pretty well using this fabric glue. Just repeating the same on the other side. Don't worry, I know it looks a little off center and abnormal. I promise it's gonna come together nicely. Okay, so things that I did off camera is add these little embellishment pieces on. Did the same process of how we use the contact cement glue to put the pieces together. All of this is going to get covered, like I said, in the foam scales, and it's going to go all the way around, but we put some of the quick seal here so that when we're painting, you know, it doesn't drip into those crevices, and make sure everything is nice and sealed. So the next part that I'm going to be doing is putting on all of the scales. And so I really like it. I know the shape kind of looks a little weird, but I like it. And now I'm going to start putting the scales everywhere. Slowly but surely it's all coming together. So I purchased these EVA Foam dragon scales off of Cosplay Pro's website, and I'm just using that fabric glue to get my dragon scale pattern onto the bodysuit. It took several hours for this process, and lots of gluing, lots and lots of scales. I even had to order more because I ran out initially. Okay, so today is finally paint day. After hours of putting all of the scales together, it's finally time to paint. There's one more thing that I need to do before I paint this, is to install a zipper to the back of the bodysuit, because since I glued all of this stuff on, I cannot get it off the mannequin, and so thus I cannot put it on my body. So I probably should have done this before adding the scales, but I left the back kind of open so that I could install the zipper. So what I'm going to do is just cut straight down so that I can take it off the mannequin and then sew on the zipper. You can use glue to put the zipper on, but I kind of want something a little bit more stable, and so I'm gonna hand sew it because I do not have a sewing machine, so we're gonna get this figured out. So before getting started with painting, I need to make the armor bracers, and so we're going to use that technique that I used to make the breastplate, covered my arm in plastic wrap and masking tape so that I could make a pattern on myself. So it requires lots and lots of masking tape. You're going to cover your entire arm, as you can see in this process, and once you have your arm fully covered, then you're going to start drawing your pattern. Okay, so now I've got my final piece of masking tape on. I'm ready to draw my pattern. You want to make sure you draw a line straight down the center of where you're going to cut, and then draw your basic design, and then cut yourself out of it so that you can repeat that same process that we did with the other pieces, where we're going to trace this out onto paper and trace it onto the EVA foam, and that's what we're doing here. It's really important to label your pieces so that you don't get mixed up with your pattern pieces, because you may want to use this again for a future project. And then here I decided to switch from the pencil to an orange marker that I had, and honestly that worked a little bit better because I was able to see it a lot more. And making sure that you have a sharp either X-Acto knife or a box cutter to cut out your pieces is really important for getting a nice clean cut. But here I'm taking my Dremel again and making sure to smooth out those edges because we want it to look really, really nice, have a nice little finish to it. I had some EVA foam dowels that I used to cut and put some accoutrements onto our bracers just to give it a little bit of a different look. And you'll see it all come together once we get everything glued on. And I got a little bit ingenious here with trying to figure out how to add some embellishments to the armor bracers. And what I'm doing is I found the silicone mold off of Amazon, and I'm filling it with hot glue and alternating between putting the hot glue in and using my heat gun to help spread the hot glue so that I can make this cool dragon mold out of hot glue so that we can glue it onto our armor bracers and paint it to give it a little bit of a three-dimensional look. This process took a lot of hot glue, especially since I had to do 2 of them. And you definitely want to make sure that this is fully dried, so I put it in the freezer for just like maybe 5 minutes so that it was fully cooled by the time I took it out of the mold. So now we're gonna work on the shoulder armor. So shout out to Cami Cosplay for creating this pattern. I went and printed it out and taped it together so that we can go ahead and use this for our shoulder armor. So now we're just gonna cut out the pattern and then trace it on to EVA foam. So we cut out our armor pieces from using that pattern. We repeated that same process where we cut out the pattern and traced it onto the EVA foam, and now I'm just using the cement glue to kind of glue all of the pieces together, make sure it looks nice. The important thing with using this cement glue is that you have a respirator on and you're doing it in an open space, because it is very toxic and can make you really, really sick if you don't have the proper tools. So make sure you're doing it in an open space with lots of aeration and away from open flames, because it is flammable. For this part, I'm just drawing a little line so that I know where the multiple layers of the armor need to go, so that I put it in precisely so that it gives us that nice little scaled armor look. This part did require a little bit of time and to slow down just a little bit to make sure that the pieces were fitting exactly where I wanted them to go. Because once you get this cement glue on, it's not coming off.
So after we install the zipper, next up is painting the bracers and our shoulder armor, and then we are that much closer to being done with this cosplay. I have 4 days left to get this finished in time for the cosplay stream on October 31st. Is it gonna happen? It is, because I also have tomorrow off and Wednesday, so any finishing touches we'll put in those days. All right, here we go.
So I found a lot of these paints at the crafting store. I opted for the metallic paint, and this one is a combination of two different paints. It is the Lumiere brand metallic paints with folk art acrylic metallic paint, because I wanted to have a little bit of a three-dimensional look with the different bronzy gold colors that I chose. You can do a variety of painting techniques for this portion. For some of the pieces, I do a little bit of dry brushing, but for this, I decided to use full paint. And I think that is coming out really, really great. So for this part, I used this metallic wax paint and used a sponge to kind of brush it onto the dragon. And here I'm just doing that same process again of using glue to make a little bit of accoutrement pieces for our breastplate, which you'll see come together in the final look.
Okay, we have finally reached the point where we are ready to start adding on the metallic portion to the corset. So just things that I did off stream, so put all the scales on, put on the design attachments to the corset. Additionally, went and spray painted like a base dark green color so that our metallic green paint will have a nice base to kind of be on. So I'm gonna start painting kind of everywhere. These pieces here is going to be that brushed on bronzy gold color like we did on the armor bracers, and then also this portion down here will be gold. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is I cut out some leather in the shape from our pattern that we used earlier. Got this leather from the fabric store, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the sides here to kind of give it that nice final look, to kind of bring everything together. So without further ado, let's get to painting.
So I'm doing a little bit of a dry brush technique. Initially I was using too much paint, so the ones on the back came out a little bit more metallic than I wanted, and so I started just doing dry brushing and only picking up a small amount of paint, wiping it off on a piece of cardboard so that I was only putting the minimal amount of paint onto the scales. This process took probably about an hour to paint each individual scale, but I was loving how it was coming out. This was just so much fun for me. As you can see, we've gotten a lot of the scales painted with that dry brushing technique. So it's coming out amazing. What I'm doing is a little bit of a dry brush technique where I dip my brush into some of the paint and wipe as much off as possible so that you're barely getting that metallic color shift paint onto the scale. So we still want to see some of that dark green that we spray painted. So everything's coming together really nicely. I'm loving how it's turning out. It looks really good. Let's keep going. Painting is such a therapeutic process for me, and I was having such a blast doing this. I had music on and I was just in my own world, just painting everything. One thing I forgot to mention is that before we even painted the bodysuit, we sprayed Plasti Dip primer on it so that the paint wouldn't seep into the EVA foam. So make sure you prime it before you spray paint or paint on top so that you get a good finish for your paint. I was getting really happy that I was seeing my vision come to life. And I will link the painting products that I used to make this look come together. I will put it in the description. So as you can see, this is the side that we painted to give it that more metallic feel. This side is just the base paint. Definitely looks really cool when you turn it in the light and you can see it gives it that like really cool shiny metallic edge. So I'm really excited how it's turning out. It looks amazing. Alright, so we have the metallic all painted on there. So the next things that I have to do is fill this in with the bronze color that's on the armor bracers and on our shoulders, and then we are done with this, and I'm so excited. We're almost there. Alright, I am so happy with how it turned out. I can't wait to put everything together with the shoulder armor and the bracers. Everything's gonna match really well. I have a skirt that I hand stamped some leaves on to kind of make us feel like we're a Dalish elf, you know, coming from the forest. I have the full cosplay that I'm going to put on at the end of this video, so if you'd like to see the final look, stay tuned. If you've enjoyed watching me make my first ever cosplay, make sure you like and subscribe, and share this video so others can see it too. So this is the final look for the cosplay. Got my elf ears and the wig, and everything just came together with the face paint, and everything was just amazing for the cosplay stream that we did today. I learned so much during this process. I made so many mistakes, but as you can see, the armor came out really well and it fit very nicely. I think we crushed it for our first ever cosplay, so super excited to see what you guys think of this whole process. If you have any suggestions, ideas for my next cosplay, definitely let me know how you think it came out. Just a little video of the full outfit. I think it came out amazing, and I'm just so grateful that this came out so well. But I'm just, like I said, I'm super excited for how everything came out, from concept to final. Like, the bracers look amazing. I hand painted the skirt. Everything just came together with the belt and the corset. Shout out to Kimmy Cosplay, because I got a lot of good information from watching her YouTube stuff, so I had to make sure to give a shout out and to
like document my own process because like I said, I learned so much from the materials to use, the painting styles, little tips like using hot glue to make embellishments, like everything just came out amazing. So like I said, if you want to see more content like this, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Alright guys, bye!